Welcome back to the Ultras here on TS. I'm your host, Josh Piercy, joined alongside by Jeff Wall and Kurt Black. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the video. Subscribe to True Sports TV on YouTube and Instagram. Guys, we've got a lot to get into this week, of course, with the return of La Liga, Serie A, the Bundesliga, plenty of football being played right now. But of course, the big stories in the world are coming out of England in the Premier League. And we start on the South Coast in St. Mary's as Tottenham run out 5-2 winners over the Saints, courtesy of 4 goals by Heung-min Son, 4 assists, and a goal by Harry Kane. But of course, the big news in Tottenham land right now is the return of Gareth Bale at the club for the first time since 2013, left for a record signing fee to Real Madrid, had a few turbulent years there. But now he's back in the place that he once called home, in the place where he made his name in football. And I'll tell you what, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty excited. But I'd really like to know what you guys think. So for Gareth Bale, Kurt, what does this mean for the club to have a man like Gareth Bale back? Not only is he a talisman for the club, but certainly he still has something to offer, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's hard to say exactly what he has to offer because, frankly, we haven't really seen him on the pitch since Zinedine Zidane cast him away. But he's going to be a great fit. They need him. This is, the 28th player they've signed to try to replace him since he left. So they've been searching long and hard to find that talisman. And, they have it in Harry Kane. And we saw what Sung did today with 4 goals. But this is an upper echelon player that really puts them back on the map as a top club in England. And don't get me wrong, they've been there. They went to the Champions League final 2 years ago. But this is the guy. And it's good for both sides. I think it's going to be a great move.
To be fair, Kurt, now Tottenham has done better without Bale than we ever did with Bale. So when you're talking about 28 players to fill his spot has been filled. And that's where my question comes to you, Jeff. Is this really a marquee signing in the way that Spurs need Bale right now? Or do you think it's more of a getting a big name on the books to try to spark something in that Tottenham locker room right now?
Well, the biggest name and the best signing for Spurs overall has to be Alex Morgan over on the women's side of things. But Gareth Bale is definitely going to be one to watch. And I think, I do think he does have something left. Obviously he struggled with injuries, but he's also struggled with a team and a manager and a fan base that just has not wanted him. They've never wanted him, it seems like, except for maybe his first season. So I think he can make an impact. And I think he's exactly what they need. I think for Jose, as he is his kind of number 9. He's going to be wearing the number 9 shirt. I honestly do think he'll be playing up top. And I think that kind of is more or less the position you can use him in best now as he kind of, ages out eventually, right? He's still got the pace. He still has a rocket of a left foot. And then, of course, you got Harry Kane, who we just saw set Heung-min Son 4 times. He used to be a number 10 himself, so he can play that role. And I think Tottenham could be really, really lethal with him on the pitch.
And I think this move, honestly, is better for Bale. This is huge for him because this is his chance to show he is still a star player. And as you were saying, he's been searching for love. He went to Real Madrid, a superstar, almost equal to Cristiano when he left. And they never seem to come to him the way I think he expected. And this is going to be a huge rise for him to get that confidence, that love back on his side. Plus, Tottenham, they're going to sell more of those ugly shirts with Bale on the back. So win-win, as I said.
Yeah, wow, ouch. But it's certainly a big move for Spurs. And about the game today, 4 goals for Heung-min Son, Kurt.
He's been fantastic for them the last couple of years. Harry Kane gets a lot of, the applause and the credit because he's English. He scores a lot of goals. They love him over there. But Son's been unbelievable. And the fact that he did his military, active duty, came back and he scores 4 goals in a game. No, he deserves that number 7. He is a talisman.
Now, Jeff, that wasn't the only 5-2 victory over the weekend. Of course, I know a team that you're pretty hot on also won 5-2. Everton, the Toffees, won 5-2 over West Bromwich Albion. Another good performance by James, got his first goal for the club, and 3 goals for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Jeff, you've been saying some pretty hot stuff over the week about Everton. Why don't you let everybody know?
Listen, man, it's like I said last week. If you don't know, now you know. Everton is going to reach the top four. They got Carlo Ancelotti. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is emerging as one of the top English strikers in the world right now. And I mean, look, they got the pieces there. Obviously, it's West Brom. I know we shouldn't overreact too much, but we just saw what Tottenham can do to a pretty solid side in Southampton, a side that I think is definitely underrated at times. Putting 5 goals past them, even if it's, your best player doing all the work, it's still an impressive performance. And I think when it comes to Everton, like we just can't look past them at this point. I mean, are they going to beat the Liverpools of the world? Probably not, but they've always given them a hard time, right? And in that game, almost every time it seems like they either they lose by a fluky goal or they draw 0-0. And you know what, Carlo Ancelotti, with one thing that he has in common with Jose Mourinho, generally speaking, is he's not really going to give up too many points either. So he's going to at least get you a point every time and keep you in that race. And I think, kind of what Wolves will do as well is they're just going to be able to hang in there with all the other guys. Meanwhile, these guys, Manchester United, are having these terrible, god-awful, insane losses.
Now, Kurt, before we move on to that insane loss by Manchester United, do you believe in Carlo Ancelotti, or do you think this is just a case of 2 games against 2 easy opposition and maybe I just called Spurs easy opposition. Maybe a bit of an overreaction for us as of the first 2 games in the season.
Look at you. You're becoming more unbiased towards Spurs. It's a beautiful thing. I think it can be both. I think the first few weeks of any football season, everyone has their hot takes after a couple results. Oh, he's the greatest player in the world. Oh, he's the greatest coach. They're going to win it all, blah, 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 blah. It's been impressive. Their start's good. And honestly, I wasn't high on James Rodriguez coming to Everton. But you know what? Now that I've thought about it, it makes so much more sense. And we think of when we've seen the best out of James, it's always when there is no doubt about it that he is the star man. Think about it at Colombia with the World Cup when he was phenomenal. He was scoring crackers every day. And then when he was with Monaco before making the big move to Real Madrid, he was phenomenal. I expect big things.
Well, for Everton, hopefully, I don't know about top 4, but we shall see. The other side of Liverpool, Liverpool was taking on Chelsea today, ran out 2-0 winners against a 10-man Chelsea side. A couple big things happening in Liverpool right now. We've got the signing of Thiago Alcantara finally, as well as kind of a weird one in Diogo Jota from Wolves. But 2-0 today, Jeff. Of course, there was a red card in the game. What did you think of Liverpool? I mean, these guys look like champions today, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think they look great. Obviously that first game was pretty difficult. The defense didn't look all like they were all sorted out. And this was just like a classic Liverpool performance. This is exactly what we kind of expect from them. Obviously, Kepa gifted them a goal, but Kepa gives a lot of people goals. So, I mean, there's really nothing out of the ordinary, to be completely honest. Liverpool just look great. They look great. I think Thiago Alcantara is one of the pieces that's really going to add just another dimension. But I think with Diogo Jota, it's just more depth on the front 3. You never – obviously, if Sadio Mane or Salah goes down, it changes everything. But if you have a guy that's really, just a very good, solid backup, that changes a lot of things. Plus, with the African Cup coming up, those 2 are going to miss a lot of time. So with him coming in there and Minamino now finally getting into the squad, they're going to need those guys to really step up.
Kurt, we've seen another horrible error by Kepa Arrizabalaga today, obviously gifted Sadio Mane a goal. They've spent so much money over this transfer window on attacking options. Obviously, Thiago Silva came into the side. But have they spent their money in the wrong place? We're seeing goals leaking the same as they were last season.
It's tough because, frankly, I can't look at any of their signings, whether it's Timo Werner or it's Kai Havertz, and then go, they should have been signed him. That was a waste of money. That's good money being spent. Those are 2 very talented young players that having in your club makes you better. But we've known for maybe 2.5 years that Kepa is not the answer. He was never going to replace Courtois in the net. And I think the biggest issue for Chelsea right now is they know the price tag that they paid for that guy. They know they paid 96 million euros for this guy that's, as Jeff said, gifting goals almost weekly. And then when he's not doing that, he's fighting his own coach. So I think they're hesitant to move on from him just because it stings. It really stings that they just set fire to 100 million euros like that.
Jeff, do you think that they could possibly go out and get somebody now before the transfer window ends, or do you think they'll have to stick with Kepa and as well as Willie Caballero for the rest of the season, or at least until January?
I mean, I don't know why they haven't already moved to Willie Caballero. I think he's at least a little bit better. He's not going to give you those terrible howlers or anything like that. Not as frequently, I guess, right? But and I think Kepa too just needs a new change of scenery. I mean, this situation's clearly been awful for him, but regardless, who are they going to get? Who are they going to get? And this sort of comes back a little bit to FFP. Like, how in the world are they spending this much money at a time where no one has any money? I mean, I don't care how much you saved up. It's kind of ridiculous how much money they're spending. Who are they going to get that's a comparable guy to step in there for Kepa? To me, I don't see it, man. I don't see it.
Just want to remind everyone real quick that they spent $73 million on Kepa, and in the first 2 games of the season, he's made 2 errors, leading directly to goals. Jeff, speaking about bad performances, we've seen a little bit of a bad performance by the Red Devils. 3-1 losers against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace have won their first 2 games for the first time in their Premier League history. Wilf Zaha, he probably doesn't care as much about United as we think he does, but, getting revenge again against his old club with 2 goals and a kind of shaky defensive performance by that team. Jeff, what are your just quick reactions to this kind of bad loss against Crystal Palace?
I mean, no shocker. Once again, we have not addressed anything. And I don't know whether to chalk it up to Ed Woodward, who's just absolutely sabotaging this team for terrible buys. I think Ole's kind of keeping him in check. I like the signing of Donny van de Beek, who had pretty much a one-touch finish, it seemed like there, to put away his first goal. Like, did it very calmly, very coolly. And I think he's going to be great. I think he's also going to be good, given, Pogba will probably leave next summer. But at the moment, we still need a defensive midfielder. And we still have not even been rumored to sign one. And that is the biggest issue to me. And until that gets solved, we're going to be letting in a lot of goals. So for neutrals, Manchester United is going to be very excited.
Yeah, and I mean, Kurt, if you're looking at this squad right now, is this kind of a fluke loss, or do they deserve to be pretty scared about what's going to happen this season? I thought Van de Beek looked pretty good coming in. Of course, he did get that goal, but is just that signing going to be enough?
I think this is what we're going to see from Manchester United. I don't see where they've made huge jumps in their squad where we should expect them to be much better. We're expecting growth from Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford and even Fernandes, but I just don't see a championship or even a European team here. We saw Lindelof get absolutely bodied every time by Zaha. He had a night to remember or to forget. And I just don't believe in De Gea either. He wasn't bad tonight. He definitely wasn't the reason they lost. But it was his mistake that cost him that penalty when he saved the original one, but he jumped too early. So I'm just not a huge fan of the Red Devils. I think Pogba needs to run while he still has any value because, as Jeff said, I think it starts right from the top. I think Ed Woodward has poisoned the soil at Manchester United, and it's a shame, because they should be one of the greatest clubs in the world.
This is also going to be something we're going to see routinely throughout the season, something I've been watching. Lindelof is, I don't want to say he's terrible, but he has been nothing but awful in a Manchester United shirt, that's for sure. And he's a terrible pairing with Harry Maguire. And it just always makes David De Gea look horrible. It makes him look brutal, which I feel he is a lot of times unfairly criticized, especially by one Roy Keane, who could maybe just ease off a little bit sometimes, not try to make just a show of it all the time. Jesus.
And, of course, they do have Dean Henderson on the bench, who's chomping at the bit after signing a new contract, I'm sure, to get into that squad. Jeff, I just want to ask you real quick, what's the timeline on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's demise at Man United?
I mean, for viewers of this channel, you obviously don't know, but you can follow us all on Instagram and Twitter down below just to find out more about our opinions. But I never thought Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was a great manager. He is more of a fill-in. He is more of that guy for the board to say, hey, look, we got a club legend. That guy that scored that amazing goal in that European Championship in Barcelona a couple of years back. But to me, he's never been a great manager. He's just been the kind of the gap. He's the pit stop. He is what's going to kind of keep United afloat, not let us go too far down until there's a real manager available. And at the moment, other than Mauricio Pochettino, there is no good manager to sign.
Well, Jeff, Max Allegri. Always high on Max Allegri. Well, Jeff, I got to tell you, man, it's been a long pit stop. Let's head over to the land of beer and bratwurst as this weekend the Bundesliga restarted with a couple of games. Of course, Champions League winners Bayern Munich came back with a big 8-0 victory over Schalke. Their new front three of Sané, Gnabry, and Lewandowski really proven to be very lethal. 3 goals from Gnabry, 1 goal from Lewandowski, 1 goal from Sané. Kurt, I mean, is it too early to say treble repeat?
Maybe a little, just slightly. Definitely domestic double, I think, is practically assured. The addition of Leroy Sané up top, made that, which was already a frightening offense, even more terrifying. And, they won the other day 8-0 without even having Alphonso Davies on the pitch. So it was a really impressive effort. I know it was Schalke, who's just a shell of their former self. But I definitely think the domestic double's sealed up because you look at the clubs that competed with them last year in Leipzig and Borussia Dortmund, and they both lost massive players. You lost Hakimi with Borussia Dortmund, who contributed 20 goals from wing back. And then Werner went to Chelsea and took his 40 goals, which aren't very easy to replace. So those would be my biggest concerns for the league if anyone's going to compete with Bayern Munich. Champions League, they lost Coutinho and they lost Thiago, so that's depth that they've lost. But I think you'll see Kimmich and Goretzka really step up in their place.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, do you see Hansi Flick and his fellas running into any troubles this season, or is it going to be a big sweep in the league?
It should be pretty smooth sailing, to be honest, but I do think Borussia Dortmund could be a little bit more improved. A lot of their players, their key players really, are super young. And obviously, Erling Haaland wasn't there for the first half of the season. And I just think this dude is literally a cyborg. This man is the Terminator. I think this guy can, he can rack up 20-plus goals in the Bundesliga this season. And if he takes a leap, Jadon Sancho, and then Julian Brandt as well, I think it's pretty much a shoo-in that they should be competing with them at least. But I think they might even still take 2 L's, and that's going to be enough for Bayern Munich to take yet another Bundesliga title.
Kurt, is there anybody else in that league who could put up a fight? I know there's kind of a newer club that you're a big fan of. I know you like the energy drink.
Yeah, I like Leipzig. They've shown since they've been promoted into the Bundesliga, they've been a fantastic club every year getting better. And one thing we know about that club is every year they find some young talisman that continues to let this club rise. So, of course, as I said earlier, they lost 40 goals in Timo Werner, and that's a huge loss. It's not going to be easy to replace. But if any club I trust to get someone to replace those type of production, it's going to be RB Leipzig.
And, Jeff, how many goals do you see Leeds' #1 fan, Erling Haaland, putting in that this season?
Yeah, I mean, I see him competing right there with Robert Lewandowski. I think it's going to shock people. I mean, this kid, I think he's just 20 now. I mean, he should be 20 most of the season. This guy's still a baby, but I think he's going to put in a lot of goals. And I think the fact, too, forgot to mention that Marco Reus wasn't there with him for pretty much that entire spell at the end of the season for Borussia Dortmund. So I think the consistency issues that they did have are going to be mostly fixed. And I think with so many creative playmakers and him being the main goal threat, he should be scoring tons of goals. I will say just shy of 30, so maybe 27.
Well, we're all hoping that Marco Reus can finally have a injury-free season. Please, please, please. So let's move over to Italy in the Serie A, where I know my friend Kurt has a vested interest. But the Serie A returned this weekend, the highlight being the return of Andrea Pirlo to the old lady. Not on the pitch this time, though, on the sidelines. They ran out 3-0 winners against Sampdoria, a goal from Cristiano Ronaldo. Looked pretty swaggy. Kurt, I'm just going to let you go. I don't like to buff your ego too much, but it was a good performance from Juventus, and they've got a new boss.
God, isn't he beautiful? Isn't he just the greatest coach you've ever seen on the planet of the earth? He's just a brilliant, brilliant tactical mind. Now, I'm not going to get too crazy, and it's one game, and it was against Sampdoria. So we're not going to crown them world beaters right now, but they were so impressive on attack. They controlled the ball. They never let it get away. They made almost 3 times as many passes. They dominated the game from start to finish, and frankly, it could have been 8-0. Ronaldo could have had a hat trick in the first. He hit a crossbar, and Kulusevski had one of the nicest debut goals I've ever seen, with just a calm one-touch finish into the bottom corner. I was really impressed with what I saw. And you look at their defensive attack or their defensive tactics, switching from Sarri. Bonucci said the biggest change was with Sarri, the team defended as a team. Where with Pirlo, he's pressuring the players to take them on one-on-one, which makes sense because our team's so strong. And so you win the ball back quicker, and then you get aggressive on attack. And we saw a lot of that yesterday, and they look like a force to be reckoned with again.
Yeah, Jeff, another club legend becoming a manager of the team they used to play for, kind of a bit of a trend right now. It's worked. It hasn't worked. How do you think Andrea Pirlo is going to fare at Juventus?
Look, I've always been skeptical of Zinedine Zidane, at least in terms of the success being all down to him. Can't deny he won 3 Champions Leagues. He's won yet another La Liga title. And maybe Pirlo will do similar things. Maybe he'll just kind of repeat the same success that Juve is supposed to have. But then you got guys like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's just tactically absolutely lost because his side can't really compensate. We've seen it, even Frank Lampard. Let's be real here. Frank Lampard is not a tactical genius. He had a squad with tons of attacking talent, tons of defensive issues. And you saw that, and we're seeing the exact same thing again this season. So I don't know. I don't want to crown Pirlo too early because I like the guy, and I don't want him to get, I don't want Kurt to get too high up in the sky and then Pirlo come crashing down.
Kurt, are you going to rebuke that?
I think he's being respectful, and I appreciate his candor, but Pirlo, the king.
You can't say appreciate his candor and then follow it up by a king. Not sure if that's allowed. Okay, let's move on. France football continued this weekend as well. Match week 4. PSG picked up a win, so that brings their total on the season now to 2 wins, 2 losses. Still in 7th place, but that table is really yet to kind of even out. It's early on in the season. But what we want to talk about is there has been no update on the incident that happened between Neymar and Alvaro Gonzalez of Marseille just a few weeks ago. Of course, a few players have been suspended, but it was mostly for the altercations, for the fisticuffs, nothing for the racism that was dealt in the game. And President of French football, Noël came out and said something a little shocking there. Kurt, do you want to fill us in on that?
Well, essentially, another person that's got a huge place in power just not doing his job for society. At least what the president said was racism does not exist in football, which for the 3 of us, we've watched a ton of sports in our lives. We love football, but I think we could all agree that football is the one sport where you see it, obviously. Not every game, of course not. But we've seen it in all leagues. Racist chants, players disrespecting other players, fans throwing things at players, right? We've seen this. This isn't new. So for this gentleman to come out and say that it doesn't exist, frankly, I don't know what he's watching. Clearly not the same sport that we are. And if he's the president of the French Football Federation, that's a problem.
Well, Jeff, if not the president of French football to speak up and make some kind of change, we've left it to the players mostly. Who needs to come out here and take a stance and do something about this?
I think it's kind of, sort of the chain of command sort of thing, right? Where, if it's a club incident, then, the club owners got to deal with it. If it's a league incident, then the league owners the French Football Federation or the FA, they have to deal with it. If they can't deal with it, well, then I think at this point, FIFA is the one that needs to step in. They're the ones that need to be the sanctioning body here and figure things out. And they need to make massive reforms. I think this is pretty obvious, and what it's also pretty obvious is the racism dealt out. And if those in power do not understand what this racism looks like, they all need to be taught. They all need to be made aware. And this is some sort of thing that clearly needs to be taught regularly and rigorously throughout all leagues, throughout all football, because it is simply not good enough. It's not even close to being good enough. Nothing in terms of discipline or anything like that has ever been good enough from football in my eyes. Kurt, you mentioned so many incidents that happened through the years, and it's disgusting. And I'm just so sick and tired of it. We talk about how in some ways football is a game that is sort of inclusive. It also kind of, in a lot of senses, it kind of represents your culture, especially in international competitions. And yet we see here the discrimination towards others, specifically black players. And it just breaks your heart.
Well, like the most frustrating part for me is, especially in this year, 2020, where battling racism has been at the front of everyone's minds in society. And so, as Jeff just said, football is entwined in our society. Maybe not as much in North America, but very greatly in Europe. And for him to say that football and racism are, yeah, we share the society, but we're completely separate of it. It's just nonsense. You can't, it's, the dude needs to lose his job, but we don't run the FFF, so.
No, and I mean, it definitely, especially right now, Kurt, like you said, with everything happening in the world right now, it makes all their, their support of all the representation of Black Lives Matter in soccer right now sort of look like a thin facade, so that when it comes down to actually doing something about it, yet again, we see them doing not a whole lot.
One last thing, I find it ironic. Most of the leagues in Europe are wearing armbands to say, put an end to racism. Wouldn't that show there's a connection? But that's all I'll say.
Absolutely. So we'll keep a close eye on that situation and update you guys if anything comes up. But for now, since you like Andrea Pirlo so much there, Kurt, I'm going to let you put yourself in a manager's shoes in Europe and make one last signing. The transfer window is not quite yet closed, but we're coming around that bend. So make one last signing, put yourself in any shoes, one guy.
Well, they're probably Giuseppe's if it's Pirlo. They're probably some designer sneakers.
Signing.
All right, if I'm stepping into that beautiful suit and that beautiful beard of Andrea Pirlo, we need a striker at Juve. It's very clear. That's been what they've been searching for all summer long, to partner in between, have Ronaldo on the wing and Dybala on the other wing. That's the system, or Kulusevski after last game. So they need a striker. And Luis Suarez, speaking of racists, was always connected to Juve. And frankly, I don't like the human being, but the player I was okay with. I'd allow it. But now there's been issues with his passport, so I don't think that's even an option anymore. And now it's been Edin Dzeko, who's been a lot linked to Juve. But I'd be honest, I'd much rather have Atalanta's Duvan Zapata. He's a little older. He's 28, 29. He's not a prospect. But what he showed last year is he is a force in the box. You can't move that man. He's a threat anytime he gets the ball. And I think he'd be perfect just to be the finisher in the box for Juve, the fox in the box.
Fox in the box. Well, Jeff, I'm going to let you put yourself into a manager's shoes, but you don't have to tell me what kind of shoes they are. If it's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I'm sure they're New Balances or something ratty like that. Certainly not Giuseppe's. But, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, if I'm putting myself in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's shoes and telling Ed Woodward to, take a back seat, I'll worry about the football side of things. I think the simple answer for Manchester United is a screening defensive midfielder, someone who can also play that sort of pivot role if need be. And I think the perfect guy for that has always been, and I've screamed from the rooftops, is Wilfred Ndidi from Leicester. He's still really young. I believe he's only 21, 22 years old, which is crazy to think, but he's been doing his thing in the Premier League for a while. And he's going to have so much talent around him, so much perfect talent to kind of complement his skill set and for him to complement the team perfectly. He fixes, I would say, about like 85% of their issues. You can worry about a left back later. You can worry about a better partner for Harry Maguire later. But if you get Wilfred Ndidi, I think you'll see a lot of issues solved. And I would honestly say if they got him, I would definitely say a top four finish is within the realm of possibility for Manchester United.
Are they going to bump Everton out?
Well, I'm going to say it here first. I think Jeff Wall might be a better scout than anybody they got in the back room of Manchester United right now.
Sign him up.
Add him up. So before we go, we got one more thing. We've got the quiz, fellas. Are you excited?
Oh, yeah.
The quiz, from here to there. So I'll tell you the history of a player from their first club, their loans, their transfers, till where they are today. And when you fellas know when you have the player in your mind, you go ahead and buzz in. Obviously, the first player to get it right wins. So pretty simple. So today we've got a little bit of a tough one, a little bit of a journeyman. He's been on a lot of different clubs. I'm certain you both know who he is. So let's just get right into it. So he started his career at Paris Saint-Germain. Then transferred to Arsenal. Then transferred to Real Madrid. Transferred back to PSG. Went out on loan to Liverpool. This is a lot of clubs. You guys aren't close yet?
I'm getting there.
Transferred to Manchester City. Transferred to Fenerbahce. Then he went to Bolton. And you're going to be surprised by this next one. Then he went to Chelsea. Still not there?
Wow. There's a lot.
I'm more shocked by the Bolton to Chelsea.
Then he went to Shanghai Shenhua in China. And now Kurt. Then he went out on loan to Juventus. No, still not.
Oh. Last of a Tweety?
No.
No.
Right, he's only.
He's currently at Juve right now.
No. Then after Juventus, he went to West Brom.
West.
Oh, Kurt. There's one more club. And then after West Brom, he went to Mumbai City FC, where he retired.
You've outdone yourself today, Mr. Piercy.
He now is a youth coach at Lille.
Anelka. Nicholas Anelka?
You got it, Kurt. Kurt wins. Incredible stuff. Scenes. Nicholas Anelka. Yeah, he really had a bit of a journeyman career, right?
Gotta watch that documentary. That probably would have given it to me.
That's true.
Yeah, Nicholas Anelka, over 500 games in his career, over 150 goals. But he certainly had a few passports, I would say.
A few extra ones we didn't even know about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, then that's all the time we have for today's show. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to True Sports TV. For Kurt Black and Jeff Wall, I'm Josh Piercy. Join us next Monday for another edition of The Ultras on TS.